this video, I'm going to show you how to strip furniture to prepare it for paint or stain. Here are the supplies that you'll need. I'm going to be using the Blue Bear stripping gel. This is a safer option, yet still very effective. Make sure you have gloves on, put glasses on, and if you're not in a well-ventilated area, make sure you wear a mask. Shake it up really well, and I'm just going to use a chip brush to apply it. And on top, I'm just going to pour it right on top. And I'm just going to use the chip brush to spread it all around. Make sure you get in all of the little details, add more if you need it. You're going to need a pretty thick layer. I'll show you in just a second about how thick it should be, but the more you use, the quicker it's going to come off. So you can definitely see the layer there. I could have even added a little bit more. You'll see later in the video. So don't be shy. These detailed areas can be really stubborn, so make sure you get a nice thick layer in all of those details and get it right up to the edge on all of the sides. Do the same thing with the drawers, apply it all over and get those edges. This is just a little blue side table that my sweet neighbor gave me for free, and so I'm using it for all of my video tutorials for my guide. When you are done adding the gel, you can add saran wrap to the top of it. This helps keep that gel wet longer, which means that the product will work for a longer time. So it does make the removal a little bit easier. This step is optional. You don't have to add saran wrap, but make sure that your stripping gel is staying wet at all times. And here's what my side table looks like after about 20 minutes. When it starts to bubble up, you can test it and see if it is ready to scrape. So I'm just going to use this metal putty knife and use a box to scrape all of that extra gunk into. It just helps with your cleanup. So I peel back the saran wrap and I start scraping. If it's very difficult to scrape, and you'll see here that it is a little bit difficult to scrape, then you might need to add more and give it another 15 minutes or so. I'm impatient, and so I just wanted to get going, and so I just had to put a little bit of extra effort into scraping it. So if a putty knife isn't working very well, you can also use a carbide scraper, and this will help get those stubborn areas off. So you can see my putty knife kind of catching here. So then I'm going to switch over to using a carbide scraper. So if your piece has been previously painted, that stripping gel is going to cut through the paint, any primer that there might be, and it is going to start to cut through the stain that's on your piece. You'll see here that the carbide scraper is scraping some of that stain away as well, but there are still some areas of stain left. So I could go through and add a second layer of stripping gel and help get all of that stain out. But I can also just sand the rest of the stain off, which is what I'm going to do with this piece. You'll see that in the sanding tutorial. So again, using my putty knife and carbide scraper to remove as much as I can from those drawer faces. And then along the edges and any intricate details, use a wire brush and kind of use a scrubbing motion back and forth to really work that stripping gel in there. And don't forget to use a box or some sort of other container to scrape that stripping gel and all that gunk into. You will at some point have to scrape right onto your floor, and then you can just clean it up and put it into the box. And again, on these detailed areas, I'm using a wire brush to try to scrub back and forth and get as much of that paint and primer out of there. These wire brushes are great in those intricate areas. Now it's time for cleanup. I'm going to use denatured alcohol, which I just put into a spray bottle. I could do another layer of stripping gel on these pieces to get the rest of the paint and primer off, but I know that my sanding will get a lot of that off too. So I'm just going to make sure that I'm removing the rest of the stripping gel, and sometimes that denatured alcohol also helps strip some of the paint, so you can use your wire brush again. Now for the really detailed areas that are really hard to get into, even with the wire brush, I'm actually using a dental tool. This helps remove anything from those really hard to reach places. And here are the drawers and nightstand after I have stripped a lot of the paint and primer off. Next up will be sanding. I will show you how we will use our orbital sander and other detail sanders to remove the rest of this paint and stain.